Okay, so I'm going to start introducing the speakers, really. At this point, I'm only going to mention their name and their job title, and I'm going to tell you how I met the two of them. And most importantly, how and why I fell in love with them. I will then let them explain what they do on a day-to-day basis before we start talking about the question for the webinar, the future of football. So first up, we have Chris van der Hagen, Director of Coach Education for the Belgian Football Association and assistant coach to the Red Flames, the Belgium women's national team. I met Chris about 6 years ago at a UEFA exchange session at St. George's Park in England. Every country had to explain in a presentation their views of player development. Chris blew me away with his passion, simplicity, and courage to say different things. It was definitely love at first sight. Since then, I've had the pleasure of working with Chris regularly on the iCoach Kids project, and he has been absolutely amazing to work with. Second, we have Pete Sturgis. Pete is the lead for the DNA Foundation phase of the English Football Association, and also the former England futsal head coach. I met Pete over 10 years ago when I was working at UK Coaching. He'd been tasked with changing youth football in England, not an easy challenge. But Pete had a plan, and he will tell you more about it. But let me tell you something, the plan is working. But that's not what really attracted me to Pete. I took my then 4-year-old son, Luca, to a session Pete ran to introduce kids to football. And it was incredible. The kids and their parents were involved for a full 60 minutes, absolutely loving it. And Pete was drenched in sweat by the time it finished. He poured his heart and soul into the session. Since then, every time I need help or to pick someone's brain, Pete is always my first call. To me, however, the thing that brings these two guys together is not football, but a desire to make sure that every child that joins a football club or goes to a football session has an incredible experience of football and falls in love with the game. Perhaps it is no coincidence that both Pete and Chris are former high school teachers. Anyway, enough of me. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Chris so he can briefly tell you about his day-to-day job, and then we will do the same with Pete. Okay, thank you very much and have a great session. Hi, Chris.
Hello, good afternoon.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much for making the time. Could you tell the people in the webinar what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, like you summarized already. I'm trying to get the bar of coach education at the highest possible level in Belgium. This is my main job, and it's creating the best learning environment for coaches. But you know, it's not about coaches mainly, it's about the work of the coaches with the players. So that's why I always try to combine, even if I don't have a lot of time, I try to combine that work of creating the education environment with practicing, because you only can learn the job by doing it. So this gives me a huge opportunity to get all the principles we install in our coach education environment, to implement them into practice, and to test it out with players, how it works in their development plan. And that's a great challenge, to not just only to work with the coaches, but immediately have the feedback of the players and to check what's working, what's not working, how can we get them feeling really comfortable in the environment, and trying to get the best out of them, because that's the main task of every coach, trying to get out the best out of every individual. And that's the big challenge in football, because I think this is the biggest mistake that are made in coaching football players. They consider to be the coach. They consider themselves to be the coach of a team, and that's not the real mindset you need. You really have to think about the individuals.
Chris, thank you very much. You've already started to point at some of the things that we want to discuss today. I'm going to go over to Pete so he can also introduce himself a little bit about his day today. Pete, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Sergio, and nice to meet you, Chris, at last. I know we've got a lot in common. I don't know whether my face is still bright red from that introduction that you gave me, Sergio, but you've embarrassed me quite a lot. So
well deserved, well deserved.
But thank you for that. My week look very, very different. On any given day, I can be working with grassroots children who are at the very start of their development journeys, and there's a lot that they can't do at the moment. And then within 24 hours, I might be at Arsenal's academy working with their under 11s who have been in the system for a while and who are very, very capable young players and young children. So the variety is great. I think I deliberately try to work as much as I can within the grassroots game, because the messages that we want them to adopt and the things that we want them to get better at and to understand to a deeper level, I want to try and show what that looks like within their domain. So it's very, very important that they don't always come to us. I think there's a real affinity in me going to them and just working with them on their own turf. So a very varied week, but I'm sure I'm like Chris. I just love every part about my job.
Absolutely, and I'm a witness to that. I've seen you work, and I think that's what really attracts people to you two guys. Because whenever you when you speak and whenever you are coaching, it really shows that you really believe what you believe, and you really mean everything. Okay, so let's really start talking about the future of football, if you may. What do you think football has to do to thrive in the sense of making sure that participation at the grassroots level, as well as performance at the elite level, keeps growing? What are the biggest challenges for football going forward, in your view, in that sense of increasing participation or making sure that every child can enjoy football? I'm gonna go. Who wants to go first, Chris or Pete?
It's like you want.
All right, so I'll go. Let's go, Chris. You go first.
Okay, so I picked the idea that Peter just launched about a variety of players. So if you ask that question, what are the big challenges? Is that we have to create that awareness on the level of the coaches, that there is that big variety. And what we see is, and that's quite a pity, the coaches, they want to get as quickly as possible at the higher age groups, because they consider this age groups to be like, this is the best podium or the best place for me, or for the higher we are in the age group, the better we are as a coach. And that's a big mistake in the view and the mindset of coaches, but also in the management, in the academy. So at my opinion, the under 7, under 8, under 9 coaches for me are as important and maybe more important than the under 19 coaches, because at the under 90 level, they know it already. They know how it works. So there is just, fine tuning. But the big challenge is on the younger age group, and we are really in Belgium, we are really convinced, and that's really where we made the difference all over the 20 last years. The investment that we made, and not only financial investment, but especially on the educational side, the investment we made on the education of coaches for the really the youngest age groups, because we have a specialized course for 6, 7 years old. That makes the difference. Doing the right things, and I take back the idea of Peter about variety of players. I say yes, but a lot of common elements, because you can go to the Academy of Arsenal, or you can go in the smallest grassroots clubs. There are some very important common elements, and these common elements are they can play in Arsenal in a small club, They are children. This is what they have in common. They are children. One thing. Second thing, their passion is football. And third element, and that's really very important, and this is the challenge for all the coaches, they want to learn. They want to become better. So it's up to us as a coach to benefit from these elements. They want to learn. What do they want to learn? What can they learn? How can I adapt myself as a coach to create the best environment for them to become better as an individual, Yeah. So I have to watch every single player in my group, and that's why you need small groups to really do quality work and to try to get connection with these players. And if you keep this in mind, it's going like that. They want all the time. You come back to your next session and they are like, coach, can we do this? Can we do that? They want to get more out of you. And that's the environment that we should create. And this is characteristic for children. They always want to explore and to try out new things. But, and that's the big problem for coaches, we don't agree about that. We want to have everything under control. And we want them to tell, now you have to do this, you have to do this. No, leave them free, give them that freedom to try and create that environment where they know, okay, let's try out, let's become better. And then they do everything for you, because the coach, you are their hero. They leave, and in the car, they say to their parents, oh, this session was amazing. When do we come back? And that's really important for the future.
Right, thanks, Chris. So, Pete, a lot of things really in that intervention by Chris. What resonated with you from an English perspective?
Oh, a lot. And I mean, I'm not sure how I'm going to follow that, because that was amazing. I'm sat here with a great big smile on my face. It's almost like we were soulmates on different parts of the continent. So, Chris, a lot of what you said resonates with me. We have a very strong mantra about ensuring that a child's first introduction to sport and physical activity is a positive and memorable one. Because, like you said, if it is positive and memorable, and they enjoy it and they're having fun, and there's a real connection with the coach and with their teammates, they are more likely to come back because of that emotional connection that they will have with the activity and with the game. But on a broader sense, there's such a strong and positive association between physical activity and academic achievement. On the broader scale, we also want children to fall in love with being active for the rest of their lives for the obvious benefits that's going to bring long term. So I just think, I've often said that foundation phase coaching is the most important. I've been pulled up because people have said, well, it's important at every age. But I just think we've got such a magical opportunity in such a unique period in a child's life that we have to be the best that we can to maximize what the child might take from those experiences.
It's like if we don't get it right at this time, we miss an opportunity and we might have to do a lot of remedial work.
Well, you might, or you might lose the child.
Might never get the chance to do it.
Go and do something else.
Yeah.
So the environment that Chris talks about is so crucial, and yet it can be the one thing that we might forget about once we get into all the tactics and the session planning and the balls and the cones. Actually, the environment that you create, if that's safe and secure for the children, then what you're trying to do is get them in a state of readiness to learn anything that might come.
So, I mean, this is something that I've spoken to both of you in the past. In what you both said, there was a lot that could be associated with what people call athlete-centered coaching or child-centered coaching. But my next question to you really is, okay, that's very good. And what you said is I don't think many people could disagree with what you said. But what are the key challenges? And you've mentioned some, but what are the key challenges that this way of doing things presents to coaches in terms of practical things, in terms of the skills they need? How do we become child-centered coaches? What do we need? Pete, I'm going to go back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the easy answer is to say that we want to put the child right at the center of everything that we do, because quite rightly, it's their development journey and we need to support it, not hijack it or take it over, and suddenly it becomes our development journey, not theirs. But to be fair to coaches, that's quite difficult, because if you are highly qualified and highly motivated, you must feel as though you've got so much to give. And in giving it, you can sometimes take over what that journey looks like, and it does become yours, not the child. So I think if we're aware of that and we've tried to strike a better balance where the child is an active agent in their own learning, I think that's a better balance. And I think that will bring more rewards, both for you as a coach, but also for the children.
That idea of the active agent is an interesting one that I want to come back to. But Chris, from your point of view, any other key skills or challenges that are posed by this idea of becoming child-centered?
The first thing is it's very easy to say it. We have a child-centered approach. I read it everywhere on paper. So it's very easy to say it, but it's hard to do it, because I always compare, and Sergio, he knows the image that I use, and they are here on my side. Sometimes I need them. The glasses. As a coach, are we able to put on children's glasses to see their journey and to see their reality? Or do we keep up our own adult glasses, and do we really want to put them on the level that we want, that we try to get things out of them that they are not yet able to do?
Yeah,
that's very, very important, that we can try to watch the reality through the eyes of the children. And I give you an example, and there is, but I think we will come to that point too. Then you have, on one side, you have the players and your relation as a coach with the players. Then on the other side, you have the parents. For example, during the training sessions, they are watching, and sometimes they say, "Oh, we want the coach we want to hear the coach. We want to feel that he has really competences to coach our children," and that's wrong. As a coach, you have to take distance, observe, and do the right things at the right moment, and not just coach them all the time, because this is what we have in a lot of situations. That we call them the PlayStation coaches. They are all the time, they are taking the decisions for the players. Do this, give the pass, and the parents, that's what they like. They say, "Oh, you see the coach, he's very active, or kids will be learning a lot." No, they will not learn from a coach who's so active. The children have football, it's the coach is out of the game as soon as the game starts. You have to give them that responsibility to take the decisions. And that's also what you must create in the learning environment, in the day-to-day training environment. And there I want to make and give an advice to the coaches who are listening. And I know it's sometimes hard to look in the mirror, and I've been through the same process. Me too. I was also very enthusiastic and very passionate about coaching, and I'm trying to help them. But then you realize we don't help them by coaching all the time and by solving the problems. So the challenge for the coach is take a video camera and just capture yourself during your sessions or during a game, and then watch what you have been doing. And I always challenge my coaches in our club, grassroots club. I say, okay, how much time have you been talking, and how much time have you been listening to the players? And if you compare this, the conclusion will be amazing. And it's like we feel obligated, we feel like an obligation as a coach to show how smart we are to the players and to talk all the time and to give them instructions. No, ask questions, listen to them and let them talk, because that's what they have to do during the game. Solve the problems with each other, talk to each other, coach each other, and not just something happens and they look at the bench and say, coach, what do we have to do? No, solve the problem, solve the problem. And that creating that autonomy, you have to create it, but you have to give them the freedom to get that autonomy and to become really the decision makers on the pitch and during the training session.
But let me ask you a question to both of you, because I completely agree. And I agree both in terms of the personal journey, where I've been trying to move from being a very directive coach to being less so. But at the same time, I sometimes come across coaches that I feel that may have misunderstood what it means to be autonomy supportive, in the sense of it's not about just letting them play.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel that actually when you are trying to create that autonomy, it's actually a lot harder to coach, because you need to then be really aware of what's happening, to decide when you want to intervene, when not to, how you're going to plan your sessions to develop that autonomy. But at the same time, I guess you want to put them in the right direction as well. No, you want to point them a little bit. So what's your perception of that? What strategies do you use to get that balance right between letting them do and any of the two, whoever is?
I mean, I'm happy to take that first, because I think what Chris has so passionately described is underpinned by really very complicated systems and processes and learning theory. So I think coaches sometimes hear a soundbite, such as let the game be the teacher, but they don't really understand all the supportive evidence that underpins that makes it possible to use that kind of approach. So we about 10 years ago, we let the game be the teacher out of the box.
Yeah.
And for 10 years, we've been trying to put it back in, because people thought it was just throw a ball in and the magic will happen.
Yeah.
I think Chris made a really important point about saying less and observing more. And the better you observe, the more effective and accurate and focused any help that you give will become, because you've really defined or tried to define what the problem is. So I think we almost have to reposition the role of the coach. And it can be quite acceptable for a coach to say less and observe more, knowing that they're going to be more effective in the long run. As a result of that, there is a lot more autonomy and responsibility given over to the players for the decisions that they make and the way that they solve the problems that present within the activities. So I think it's a real mixture. But I also see that the role of the coach is to identify when somebody needs help and they're in the best possible position based on their observations as to what that help then looks like.
Thanks, Pete. Again, couldn't agree more. Chris, what's your take on this?
Yeah, 100% agree, and that's the problem of, I don't know if it's the right word in English, but the problem of terminology, of the problem of interpreting a sentence like let the game be the teacher, and the game is the teacher, but which game? So if you say, okay, today we are 10 at the session. Okay, the game is 5 against 5. But so we throw the ball in, we let them play, and the magic will happen. No, because that 5v5 is not the best game to learn them what you want to learn them, what you want to teach them. Yeah. So it's like the link with methodology. in coach education, okay, how can I find the best game format or the best activity to get that problem out of the players and to get a lot of repetitions and to make them, to oblige them to make a lot of decisions. I give an example. If you want to teach the youngsters the decision making about, okay, am I going to dribble or do I prefer to give a pass? So the decision between pass and dribble. Okay, if you play 5v5, how many times will they take that decision? Some of them they will, others maybe they will never touch the ball. But if you put them, if we play a game, you put two goalkeepers and then we play on one side, 2 against 1. One of the two starts with the ball. So there is a challenge. What do? Do I dribble the opponent or is it better to give a pass? So all the time you put them in a decision-making environment where you say, okay, 2v1 is the best game, the most easy game to teach them the choice between passing or dribbling. So if you do this, okay, next step, we build it up. We make more progressive, more progression, and we say, okay, next step, instead of 2 against 1, we make 3 against 2. So you're going closer to the reality of their age group, which is maybe 5v5, but you build it up step by step, and you put them all the time in that environment of, okay, I have to take a decision. The one on the ball always will have a decision about 3 against 2. Can I dribble or can I pass? And that's when you teach these games, the game is the best teacher.
Yeah.
That's the best teacher. But this is not the game and that's the difference, the game in the training session and the game of the weekend. These are 2 different games, completely different. And we don't teach our coaches to do the game of the weekend during the week, because the game of the weekend is the big game. During the week, it's the game to make the individual players better. So then you have to adapt to their skills, to their age groups, and to the topic you want to work on. And then they go to the big game, and then it's the big challenge. Can we now show in the big game, on the big podium, what we have been learning this week? And that's more important than do we win the game on the Saturday.
Yeah. Chris, you've also mentioned that when you talked about and I love this separation between the game at the weekend and during the week, right? But what you both have done in England and Belgium, and in Belgium you've taken it to the extreme in a good way, is to actually make the weekend more suitable for the children as well. So you've changed the format of the weekend games to fit the child, okay, by reducing the numbers of people, by reducing the size of the pitch, the size of the goals, the size of the ball. So again, that's something that if there are any national federations listening, you have to also make the coach's job easier by making sure that they don't feel the pressure to perform in a completely different environment at the weekend, and make those 2 environments come together as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, we are really pioneers on this side. So and I'm really very proud about these decisions. They were hard decisions in the past, but now I think we should be proud on the playing formats that we have installed all over the country. And I'm really convinced we have the best format all over the world, because they start, and I take the words of Peter as starting point, or kids or children, when they start the first time in the football environment, they play 2 against 2, which is a goalkeeper and a goalkeeper, and 2 players with one ball, 1v1. It's all about the only skills that they are able to learn at 6 years old, which is dribbling and shooting on a ball. So we created from the very beginning the best environment for them that fits with their identity. And the most important thing is we call it football festivals. We create it in a non-competitive environment. So the first 2-3 years, the first 2 years, they only play like these festivals where the parents, the kids arrive with the parents, we mix them up. It's not team A against B, it's mixed. We make duos and they play with each other, against each other. Fantastic environment, only winners, no competition, you don't need referees. There is only a happy feelings afterwards. And that's very important to show to the parents, this is the best environment for your children. The best environment is not competition, because that's what the parents want. They think about, he must become a star player. So it's from the very beginning, the parents create a press environment, a pressing environment for the kids, and a pressing environment for the coaches, for the clubs. So that's really important to think about, and it's linked with what I said in the beginning. This, can we put on the glasses of children, and can we, from the very beginning, can we look in the mirror and say, what do they need? What is the best environment for these children? And then it's up to us. We should be the experts. The adults should be the expert and say, it's up to us to adapt and to create the best environment.
Yeah. I mean, this is music to my ears, Chris. So I'm just sitting here thinking, this is fabulous. I think we have different challenges, certainly in trying to change what the weekend event looks like. But we are investing a lot of time actually looking at what changes we can make to align with all of the things that you've just said about, can we make it more appropriate for children's development and enjoyment, rather than keep going back and say we can't change it because this is how we've always done it. And I think we're asking ourselves some very, very tough questions at the moment. And I'm sure you went through the same kind of process in convincing people that this was the right path to take. It's also our foundation phase DNA. We call those 2v1 games, those 2v2 and 3v2 games. They're the building blocks of foundation, of football. So our foundation phase children learn about the 11-a-side game through their appropriate version, which is all of those smaller formats which you've just described. So I think we're on the same path. We're certainly a little bit further behind you, but we've got the same vision as to what where we want to get to that you have. And I know we're going to get there because it's so important that we do.
It seems to me, it seems very clear from what you both are saying.
And I want to add something.
Go on, Chris.
And it's, I understand, Peter, the adversity and the obstacles that there are in that process of change. But what's really important to consider is, it's so easy to make a change that has a huge impact on the development of youngsters, of players. And it's so easy because it doesn't cost any money. But on the other side, it's so hard because we have to beat all the adversity from the past. We never did like that. The real game is 11v11. Yeah. That's what we always have as common. Why should we change to these smaller formats? Why? It's very clear. Yeah. And then I asked to some people who are on that critical process. It's very easy for me. I say, your kid's 6 years old. You want to teach them to ride a bicycle. Do you use your bicycle? And then they say, of course not. We need a small bicycle. Yeah, but if you want to teach them football, you need a small football format, which is appropriate to the age groups. Yeah, and perfect. It's easy to do it if we have the courage to say all together, let's do something for the kids and not something for the adults.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, in terms of analogies, really, of things that we should do with children. I was in another webinar a couple of weeks ago with a bunch of Argentinian basketball coaches, and one of them said something that made me laugh. If every time you went to the bank or every time you went to the shops, there was a massive queue, you would change bank or you would go to a different shop. But for example, we keep making long lines for children to take turns, and we think they're going to keep coming back. So all those, really,
That's a good one.
like you say, seeing it with their eyes and their experiences is so important.
Yeah.
But I mean, we keep coming back to the idea of education for the coaches, education for the parents. Because like you say, sometimes the hardest people to convince are the parents. I still get parents that come to me in my basketball club saying, "Oh, you need to shout at my child more, because if he reacts to shouting, it's like, okay, well, maybe not."
Yeah.
I know. Again, in England, you've done a lot of work on this, because I've been there as a parent, going to football matches, having to abide by the rules of the FA and all the work you've done. Just give us a quick summary of what's happening in the.
Well, I mean, the respect campaign is still ongoing and is one of our key pillars of how we want the adults to behave. I think the important thing that we have to remember is that young children look to the adults for how they might behave in any given situation. And if the young players see the parents acting in the manner that some of them do, that almost makes it acceptable when it's not. So I think the adults have a huge responsibility in the examples that we set for the young people. And sometimes the young people, they actually embarrass us because their behavior is so much better. And we could take a lot from the way that they behave in those pressurized situations. I think we have to be careful about the terminology, because if you talk about parental education, it's almost demeaning. And I would rather say it's about sharing with parents, so that if they are more aware of your philosophy or your beliefs and your values, either as a coach, a team, or a national association, then there's real clarity about why you are doing what you are doing and why you expect certain things to happen. And they have a choice then as to whether they buy into that and support it wholeheartedly, or whether they look for something else, if what you're offering is not what they want. I think there is a real tendency to push parents away, because it lessens the pressure and the hassle of having to deal with them. For me, I'm a firm believer that you have to bring them even closer, so that they begin to understand and can continue your key messages, both away from match day and training, but also reinforce them at every opportunity. And that's when it becomes really powerful.
Yeah, I agree, Peter. It's the parents should be the first partners in the development of the players. Absolutely.
Yeah, we always say in iCoach Kids that we have to stop looking at parents as the enemy, but actually as a resource. They are probably the best resource we have at our disposal. Really, the parents are not Darth Vader. We need to really bring them in and really get them to contribute, because they all want the best for their kids.
Exactly.
And we have to make sure that they know how to do that. And at the same time, we need to be sometimes, I think, more humble as coaches, because parents know their kids much better than we do. So we need to listen to them a lot more than just like you say. I really love what you said about sharing, because it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah.
If it's only coming one way, like, there's going to be resistance, even if that's nature. That's.
But if you think about it, Sergio, they are giving us, for certain periods of the week, their most prized possession, whether it's their son or their daughter. Why would we not include them in what was happening during those times that they give their son or daughter to us? It makes perfect sense to bring them in closer rather than push them further away.
Completely. Yeah. All right, guys, look, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I have to apologize to some of the audience, because we haven't answered their questions. I think we have to come back for a second serving of this at some point in the
that would be great. Yeah,
the near future, if you don't mind. From me and from iCoach Kids, just a big thank you for making the time to be here today. A big thank you to all the people that tuned in. Just so you know, between Zoom and YouTube, there were over 200 people watching from all over the world. So thank you so much, because you've made a massive difference. And people, stay home, stay safe, and stay connected. Okay. Thank you so much, Pete and Chris. See you soon.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sergio. Chris.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
bye, bye, guys. Okay.